This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
One 1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The President issues an extraordinary gazette making several amendments to ministerial portfolios. The founder of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, sworn in as the Minister of Finance. The Education Minister says vaccine for all teachers from next Monday. The administration of Pfizer jabs as AstraZeneca's second dose halted. The quarantine guidelines for inbound travellers revised. In news from overseas, Russia scrambles jets amid NATO drill in Black Sea. Sports, cricket, Sri Lanka Cricket says 29 national cricketers signed tour contracts. Local news in detail. Issuing a statement, the President's Media Division said Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was sworn in as the Minister of Economic Policies and Plan Implementation before the President. Meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa issued an extraordinary gazette making several amendments to ministerial portfolios. A new ministerial portfolio was gazetted under the title Economic Policies and Plan Implementation. Planning and implementation of relevant policies in order to accelerate economic development and social progress based on the National Policy Statement Vistas of Prosperity and Splendour fall under its purview. The founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, was sworn in as the Cabinet Minister of Finance before the President. Basil Rajapaksa also took oaths as a Member of Parliament through the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna National List before the Speaker of the House, Mahindayapa Abewardana. Basil Rajapaksa also served as the Cabinet Minister of Economic Development during the present Prime Minister's government in 2010 to 2015. The Education Minister, Professor G.L. Peris, says a program to administer vaccines to shield against COVID-19 for all teachers in the country will commence from Monday, the 12th of July. He said the decision was taken following a discussion with the President last week to conduct a vaccination program for teachers within a week. Accordingly, the minister said all teachers of 10,155 schools, principals and all non-academic staff will get the vaccines. The epidemiology unit of the Ministry of Health stated 189,918 individuals were vaccinated against the coronavirus yesterday. The ministry said 2,171 individuals received the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine utilized for the first time in the country. 80 persons received the second dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine, while the first dose of the Chinese-manufactured Sinopharm vaccine was administered to 151,750 individuals and 35,893 persons received the second dose of the Sinopharm vaccine. Meanwhile, 24 individuals received the second jab of the Russian-manufactured Sputnik V vaccine. Accordingly, 1,322,699 persons have been fully vaccinated with the Covishield, Sinopharm or Sputnik V vaccine doses. Moreover, the Army Commander Shavendra Silva said that the administering of Pfizer vaccines by the Army as second dose to those who had been vaccinated with AstraZeneca will be stopped from today, as Sri Lanka will receive 1.4 million doses of AstraZeneca by the third week of July. The Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya had appointed a special trial at bar at the Colombo High Court to hear the cases of former Inspector General of Police Pujith Jayasundara and the former Defence Secretary Hemasri Fernando for offences of murder and attempted murder and serious lapses to prevent Easter Sunday bomb attack on the 21st of April in 2019. The Colombo High Court Judge Namal Balale has been appointed as the presiding judge of the panel, appointed by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya, while High Court judges Aditya Patabandige and Mohammad Isadeen have been appointed as the other members of the judges' panel. Two separate indictments comprising 864 separate charges against the former IGP and the former Defence Secretary were filed by the former Attorney General Dappula Dilivera in the Colombo High Court on May 3rd. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
The Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya had appointed a special trial at bar at the Colombo High Court to hear the cases of former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando for offences of murder and attempted murder and serious lapses to prevent Easter Sunday bomb attacks on the 21st of April in 2019. The Colombo High Court Judge Namal Balale has been appointed as the presiding judge of the panel, appointed by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya, while High Court judges Aditya Patabandige and Mohammad Isadeen have been appointed as the other members of the judges' panel. Two separate indictments comprising 864 separate charges against the former IGP and former Defence Secretary were filed by the former Attorney General Dappula Dilivera in the Colombo High Court on May 3rd. The Parliament will convene today. The Registration of Electors Bill, the General Sir John Kotalawala National Defence University Bill, and regulations made by the Minister of Defence under Section 52 of the Immigration of Immigrants and Immigrants Act will be taken up for debate. Meanwhile, yesterday, two orders under Sri Lanka Export Development Act regarding cess levy were passed in Parliament. The Central Committee of Sri Lanka Freedom Party will convene today. The meeting is scheduled to be held under the patronage of Party Chairman Maithripala Sirisena. The present political climate and future party activities will be discussed at length during today's SLFP Central Committee meeting. That ends local news.
Towards a new dimension in innovation, People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The Health Ministry has issued a new set of quarantine measures applicable for travellers arriving in Sri Lanka during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the new measures, those who are arriving in Sri Lanka from overseas with full COVID vaccines are not required to undergo 14 days quarantine if their on-arrival PCR tests are negative. The statement issued by the Health Ministry underlined they will be regarded as fully vaccinated when the recommended doses of the COVID-19 vaccines are completed. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
In Watchlight, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board announced that a 21-hour water cut will be imposed in several areas of Colombo starting from 9 a.m. on Saturday the 10th of July until 6 a.m. on Sunday the 11th of July due to essential improvement work at the Ambathale Water Treatment Plant. Accordingly, Colombo 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 will be without water supply, while supply will be at low pressure in Colombo 4 and 12. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board requests consumers to stock sufficient water. That was Watchlight. And moving on to a bulletin of world news in the headlines, Russia scrambles jets amid NATO drill in Black Sea. Haiti police hunt down Moise killers as fears of chaos grow. The Japanese capital battles a new wave of coronavirus cases as pressure grows on Olympic organizers about spectators. World news in detail. Russia's military has scrambled 2 fighter jets during a large-scale military exercise involving NATO members and Ukraine in the Black Sea. Russia's defense ministry said that the fighter jets escorted a US P-8 patrol aircraft as it was flying over the sea. The Russian military also flew medium-range bomber aircraft over the Black Sea. The moves came amid a multinational exercise involving NATO members and Ukraine that kicked off in the region in late June. Security forces in Haiti have shot dead 4 suspected killers of President Jovenel Moïse and captured 2 others, the country's police chief said on Wednesday, as the brazen assassination threatened to plunge the already impoverished crisis-hit Caribbean nation deeper into chaos. The police general director Leon Charles described the 4 people killed as mercenaries and said that security forces were locked in a fierce gun battle with the men who assassinated the president at his home overnight. Moïse, a 53-year-old former businessman who took office in 2017, was shot dead, and his wife, Martine Moïse, was seriously wounded when heavily armed assassins stormed the couple's home in the hills above Port-au-Prince. Japan is set to declare a state of emergency for Tokyo to contain the city's latest wave of coronavirus, which will continue even as it hosts the Olympics. The organizers consider banning all spectators from the event. Medical advisors and experts have said for weeks that having no spectators at the Games would be the least risky option amid widespread public concern that the influx of thousands of athletes and officials will fuel fresh wave of infections. Organizers have already banned overseas spectators and have set a cap on domestic fans at 50% of capacity to a maximum of 10,000 people. The Olympic Games are scheduled to begin on July 23rd and run for 2 weeks. They will be followed by the Paralympic Games. Back to the headlines of the world news. Russia scrambles jets amid NATO drill in Black Sea. Haiti police hunt down Moïse killers as fears of chaos grow. The Japanese capital battles a new wave of coronavirus cases as pressure grows on Olympic organizers about spectators. That ends world news. And on to development news. The government of Japan implemented the Japanese Grants Program for Human Resource Development Scholarships for executive-level government sector officials from 2010 for undergoing postgraduate degrees courses at recognized universities in Japan. Sri Lanka has been facilitated for 180 postgraduate degree courses and 8 doctorates under this program. The government of Japan has agreed to award a grant worth approximately 488 million rupees to the batch to inaugurate studies in September. Accordingly, the cabinet approved the resolution submitted by the Prime Minister as the Finance Minister to enter into an agreement with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency to implement the program. That was development news, and moving on to sports news. Cricket news. A total of 29 players nominated by the national selectors to be considered for the series against India have signed tour contracts following discussions. Sri Lanka Cricket, issuing a statement, said selectors nominated 30 players to be considered for the upcoming white ball series. SLC said former captain Angelo Matthews, who was included in the respective 30-member squad, had requested Sri Lanka Cricket to relieve him from national duties owing to personal reasons until further notice. Sri Lanka-India One-Day International Series is scheduled to begin on Tuesday. And that was sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Sri Lankan Airlines, the national carrier of Sri Lanka and a member of the One World Alliance, resumes flights to the Russian capital Moscow. Sri Lanka's new service will operate a weekly scheduled flight between Colombo's Bandaranaike International Airport and Moscow's Domodedovo Airport from 30th July 2021. The frequency of operation will be once a week. Sri Lankan Airlines chairman said the resumption of services connecting Colombo and Moscow will not only facilitate travel but will be the impetus for building closer bilateral business connections between the two countries. That was Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
In economic news, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, at its meeting held yesterday, decided to maintain the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the central bank at their current levels of 4.50% and 5.50% respectively. The board arrived at this decision after carefully considering the macroeconomic conditions and expected developments on the domestic and global fronts. That was economic news.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
In the weather report, the Met Department cautions the showery condition over the southwestern part of the island and the gusty conditions in the surrounding sea areas are likely to enhance during the next few days, particularly on the 9th and 10th of July. The Met Department predicts showers or thundershowers to occur at times in the western, Sabragamua, northwestern, southern and central provinces. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters can be expected at some places. Furthermore, showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Ua and eastern provinces and in the Mullaitivu district during the evening or at night. That was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To end this news broadcast, the headlines again. The President issues an extraordinary gazette making several amendments to ministerial portfolios. The founder of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, sworn in as the Minister of Finance. The Education Minister says vaccine for all teachers from next Monday. The administration of Pfizer jabs as AstraZeneca's second dose halted. The quarantine guidelines for inbound travellers revised. In news from overseas, Russia scrambles jets amid NATO drill in Black Sea. Sports cricket, Sri Lanka Cricket says 29 national cricketers signed tour contracts. And with that, we end this news broadcast.